is rough, and it takes all that you've got, but he's been here, just waiting for you to knock. So take his hand and plant your feet on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to build my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to build my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to build my life on the rock.
G'day, mate. You're watching Life on the Rock.
Hi, welcome to Life on the Rock. We have another great show for you tonight. We have representatives from Youth 2000, Father Conrad, Brother Crispin from the CFRs, and Suzie Fusco, one of the coordinators for the U.S. for the Youth 2000 retreats that are been so successful, been around 22 years, I believe, and just helped so many young people. It's a Eucharistic centered retreat. And they're going to talk about what they do and the impact it's had on young people, and I think inspire us all. So good to see you, Doug.
You too, Father.
We're deep into Lent, right? Going strong here.
See.
And I want to talk a little bit about the cross. I know some of our young people at home, you're hearing a lot about it in the preaching and the homilies and things. And it's at the center of our faith, right? Pope Benedict said from UCAT, they have a quote from him. It says, "The event of Christ's death and resurrection is the heart of Christianity, principal fulcrum of our faith, powerful lever of our certainty, impetuous wind that sweeps away every fear and indecision, every doubt and human calculation." So it's the heart of Christianity. That's what we're heading for, right, as a celebration of Easter and all the graces and the new life that God gives us through the Paschal mystery. In this Lent part, we hear a lot about the cross. I know you and your Radix ministry, you're out there with the people preaching the message of the cross. What is it, that really strikes people in your presentation of the Passion play?
Well, the Passion, the number one comment that people will make after seeing the Passion that we do is, "I never knew that's how it was, that the cross was this precise." The Romans knew what they were doing, and this means of torture and death was so extensive and so detailed. That's the number one comment. But then from there have been a number of people who've said that it helps them understand more their own crosses in life, that there is this aspect of the Master goes through this is how the head is treated, how will the body be treated, and so forth. And so we are going to have to endure some trial, some cross. And it's, on one hand, it's beautiful, it's magnificent, and on the other hand, it's not very exciting when you think about it. You think of St. Teresa of Avila saying, when she fell in the mud puddle, as the saying goes, "Lord, if this is how you treat your friends, it's no wonder you have so few."
Right.
Right. And it's the idea that the carrying of a cross, the idea of going to Calvary, isn't something that we all say, "Oh, yippee, this sounds great, I'm looking forward to this," except that the uniting with Christ and being with Christ part. So if we don't have that time, that meditation, then the doubt, the confusion, and so forth is going to be there. Right. If we don't have that uniting with Christ. But it's a mysterious thing. It's hard to do.
I just spoke to, when we were in Phoenix there for the nun run, I spoke to a woman who, she was always in the church, was always there Sunday and raised her kids in the church. But she said there's so much of the faith she didn't get, and one of it was suffering. She often bewailed her situation in life, the difficulties she had. She said, why is this stuff happening? I'm a good Catholic, right? And she said the network helped her to come to understand the value, the meaning of the cross, and that she said that she, through hearing it, and I guess measuring it with her own experience, she learned to see it as a place, where we draw closest to Christ. Right. And even can be a source of joy in our life because of the knowledge that it's redemptive. Again, John Paul II was so eloquent on this. He said, in bringing about the redemption through suffering, Christ has also raised human suffering to the level of the redemption. Thus, each man in his suffering can also become a sharer in the redemptive suffering of Christ. So he's saying that Jesus has redeemed suffering. He's given it value, right? And we can take our cross, unite it with our Lord's, and it's meaningful and it's redemptive, salvific. You know, I think maybe our young people, you might be at home and thinking, you know, what is all this? You know, Catholics, we have the cross in every room. We're always hearing about it. Why, you know, what is the meaning of it? And again, UCAT has a nice paragraph on this. It says, the cross on which Jesus, although innocent, was cruelly executed is the place of utmost degradation, and abandonment. Christ, our Redeemer, chose the cross so as to bear the guilt of the world and to suffer the pain of the world. So he brought the world back home to God by his perfect love. So ultimately, it's a sign of his love, right? His giving himself for us. That's the meaning of the cross. You know, when we see the cross, it's not that we have some, you know, perverse fascination, attraction with suffering,
Right.
but we see God's love for us, that he'd give himself, you know, in obedience to the Father. That's what the theologians tell us redeems us, is Jesus was obedient to the Father to the point of death, right? And that's a powerful witness.
It is, and there's something because of that very truth, the mystery of that truth, is why we hear from St. John Vianney, the patron saint of priests, this particular statement about the power of the sign of the cross, even making the sign of the cross. You know, as Catholics, we're raised, we make the sign of the cross, and oftentimes, you know, I've done it without even thinking about it. You know, sometimes we do it as if we're swatting flies or scratching an itch and not thinking about what we're doing. But, you know, St. John Vianney, who was tormented by the devil for many, many years of his life, was a tremendous confessor, could read hearts. God blessed him with a tremendous, tremendous spiritual insight. He himself said that when you and I make the sign of the cross with love and reverence, that can cause all of hell to shudder in fear. I mean, the power of the cross, even signing ourselves with the cross, because of the magnificence of this redemptive act through the cross, can cause all of hell to shudder in fear. So, what are we doing? Let's get busy. Let's make hell shudder in fear. It's powerful.
Jesus' victory is through the cross.
Yeah, and so you know, uniting our sufferings and so forth. You're right. The mystery of that will go on until the end of time. How our sufferings can be united with Christ to actually affect souls. But it's powerful. Right. I mean, as a man, I can offer my sufferings, from a headache to a stubbed toe to a long day at work to whatever it may be, for my wife and my kids, and how you know, fantastic that is. Next week, you know, we're being reminded that the Passion that me and Eric Genis do is going to be aired on Holy Thursday here at the network. Tremendous honor to have that happen. I'm so always very thankful for that. I'll never forget the time Mother Angelica saw it live in Oakland, California many years ago. And
you had long hair then, right?
I had long hair. It was a big ponytail. And no, I didn't. I've never had long hair. I never had all my hair, in fact. No, but she was. We were just blessed to have her in the front row. And afterwards, she was leaving, and I went over as she was going out the door to thank her for taking the time to stay and watch the Passion. And she turned to me and she said, "That needs to be on TV." And we got a call a few days later, and we're invited to come down. It was always been a tremendous honor to be part of the network and share that passion. But that airs next Thursday, Holy Thursday. All
right. And don't forget to go see October Baby. It's in the theaters. We need to support that pro-life film. So we're going to take a short break. We'll be back in a minute with Youth 2000, so don't go away. Hi, welcome to Life on the Rock, and tonight our guests are from Youth 2000, we could say. Suzie Fusco, welcome.
Thank you, Father.
Now you are generally the U.S. director with your mom?
Yes.
And your mother's name is?
Ann Brawley.
Ann Brawley.
Uh-huh.
And Brother Crispin, you've been on the show.
Great to be back.
Good to have you. And Father Conrad, welcome.
Good to be with you.
Well, let's get right in and talk about Youth 2000. It's a retreat for young people. What happens at a Youth 2000 event?
Well, they come, a lot of them don't know what's going to take place at the weekend, but they come and it's a retreat based on the teachings of the church on the true presence of Jesus in the Holy Eucharist. So it's really just a weekend catechesis, kind of everything you maybe should have learned in catechism class or Sunday school that you might not have learned. And in the course of the weekend, they learn the love of God. And the young people come and they learn that Jesus is truly present in the Eucharist. And they also have a personal experience with him, that he loves them so much. So many of them don't really understand that. But when they come and they spend the time and they sing the songs and go to confession and hear some testimonies, by the end of the weekend, they really don't want to leave. It's so joyful and full of just God's grace all weekend long. And there's time for silent prayer too. So it's the first time a lot of them have experienced that silence, and they love it. They love to be with Jesus. So
I can say, the couple that I've taken part in or spoken at and different things over the years, what struck me most, the number one thing, was when the priest is processing with the monstrance and going to almost every single individual, and to see so many of these young people for the first time being this close face to face with Christ after the surroundings have been so conducive to really ponder this mystery, and then just to reach up and touch the cloak from the priest they're holding, and just to watch the moment of something transforming those young people right there. It was electrifying.
Yeah.
And while there was clearly the joy, there seemed to be this safety, this security, this peace, this warmth, this something in the air that said, this is a good place to be. I don't want to leave it. And it was just wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you describe it? It was incredible.
Well, Father Conrad, maybe you could speak to that, because you've led that, right? What do you call that? Is there a special name for that when you process with the?
It's the Eucharistic procession, very simply. Everything is put in simple terms. And, as you were speaking, I was thinking of the Gospels constantly portraying amazement, how they were amazed with Jesus. And it really describes so much of the retreat, young people amazed by what they're seeing. And so there's a very visual experience in the retreat, to see other young people going to confession, approaching the priest and being invited to that. Some of the mystery, the things that they don't understand about the faith, being revealed slowly through the weekend. And I think I'd spoken to you earlier about the young man who came into the confessional after the procession. The Eucharist came by, and he said, I don't want to go to confession. He said, I have to say to somebody that I didn't know that Jesus could love me like this. And so the experience of Jesus in the Eucharist, the presence of God, and wrapped in that moment, again, the amazement. And this is really the prize, is to raise up the amazement of young people in the incredible presence of Jesus in the Eucharist and the sacramental life of the Church.
That reminds me of John Paul's encyclical on the Eucharist. He said he wrote it to rekindle Eucharistic amazement. That's a great connection with the Gospel and the amazement. And right, it was explained to me that it was inspired by the woman touching the hem of the garment in the Gospel. When the priest goes around, he has all the vestments on, and sometimes the young people touch the vestments. Not that the priest is Jesus, identically, but
it really is a powerful moment. They've been going through almost 2 days of prayer and exercises, testimonies, listening, visually again, seeing their peers, questioning and surrendering to different things. And the moment of Jesus coming to them follows Jesus being in the center of the room on that pyramidal stand, where the Eucharist is high up and the teaching is all around the Eucharist. My favorite actually was in Texas when we did the retreat, and the newspapers reported it, and the retreat's done in a gymnasium, and it's decorated to bring it to a sense of beauty in the Eucharist. And the headline in the paper was, Jesus at center court. And it kind of captures the humanity and the divinity of the situation,
And it was a local paper. It was a secular paper.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ at center court. Yeah.
Well, let's talk, just so the people at home understand, just the schedule. Like Friday night, the kids show up, introductory talk.
They come in, there's a lot of music and singing, and they learn some of the songs, and so they kind of get a little warmed up that way, meet a few new young people from different places, and then when they do that, then we come in and we explain their surroundings a little bit. We hang flags from all the different countries because we try to help them see that our Catholic faith can be found all over the world. And a lot of times there's Youth 2000 retreats going on in some of the other countries that we have the flags up. Maybe in Ireland might be having a Youth 2000 the same weekend as in the United States. So we share that with them. And so just kind of help them introduce, and then we pray the rosary together with the young people, and they love that. They love that. We just entrust them to Our Lady, and we know that they're her children, and we just ask her to take them and help them to come to know her Son on the retreat weekend. And then we have Mass. A lot of times a bishop or cardinal will come and say the opening Mass, or usually the closing Mass, one Mass during the weekend. They'll usually come, and then after another break, then they come back for a talk on the Eucharist. You know, what is the Eucharist, and have that deep catechesis, but in a way that they can understand. And right after that talk, then the Blessed Sacrament is placed on this beautiful altar with candles, and the lights are turned down.
The burning bush?
The burning bush,
yeah.
yeah, we call it the burning bush. So, and they come in and they're there, and they're in adoration and prayer. Many of them have not had that time of quiet. The cell phone's always ringing, or this, that, or the other, and inundated in so many ways. And it's the first time many of them just sit in the presence of God, you know, ever. And a lot of them go to confession on the weekend. The priests are available all weekend for confession. And no one makes the young people go. It's just gentle reminders. The priests are there, you know, if you want to go. And it's amazing. When Jesus and the Blessed Sacrament is placed in the center, they're just these lines. The young people just line up, and it's just amazing. And it's such an, really, you know, talking earlier about the new evangelization, the young people evangelize the young people on the retreat weekend. And the way they sing, going to confession, they read the readings, they lead all the prayers, and there's a group behind the scenes helping them out. But
we always say the retreat master is Jesus himself for the weekend. We always start Friday night. You know, everyone's getting settled in, and what's this all about? It's unusual, the flags, all the... Youth 2000 really engages people on all the levels, you know, visually, singing, the smells of, you know, the incense and so forth. But we always tell the young people, Jesus is the center of this retreat. He's the retreat master. And you can see people experiencing Jesus in a very profound way, and just changing. We've had incredible stories. We've been blessed to see incredible stories and hear incredible stories of people coming, thinking of committing suicide, for example, and just for some reason Providence brings them into the retreat, and they're saved, you know, changed, converted, if you will. Healings, tons and tons of healings from awful situations, and it's all from Jesus and the Blessed Sacrament. That experiential encounter with Jesus.
Can you talk about what you see the young people doing? Like at a time of silence, they are praying, and they're not texting. And
yeah, well, I think it's a focused. You know, the silence comes by way of maybe a focused attention. There's a very clear plan that we have, moment-to-moment plan, series of talks leading up and conditioning the people to learn more and more about the faith. And there's always music to lead into prayer. So it's really a focused attention to bring people away from maybe the frenetic energy they were involved with before they came to the retreat, the distractions, the preoccupations. And then for the adoration and the healing service, certainly, there's a silence and this contemplative experience.
And I think there's an awe when they come in and they see the young people, other young people are like, wow, what is this? And, you know, and at first, so many, over and over again on Sunday, we have a chance where they can stand up and say what they thought about the weekend. And so many times they stand up and say, well, I didn't want to come. Or I think there's a friar whose parents paid him to go to one of the retreats, and that was his first 2000. And so there's
How
that
much
kind
does that
of
run now?
Yeah, inflation. But so, you know, we hear all those stories on Sunday, but I think when, you know, Jesus is placed in the center, there's just this awe. And a monstrance is gorgeous. You know, seeing the one in the beginning of the show, it just, you know, there is an awe to it. And especially when you haven't really seen Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament up close, it's like, wow, you know, and then just, is that God? Is that really God? And they ask that of themselves. And Pope Benedict said, you know, it's the Lord who touches the heart. So we're kind of there in the background, keeping the schedule going and all that, but they're there in the presence of Jesus, and it's just amazing what happens because he does it. He touches their hearts in this powerful way.
Well, you know, I know I was involved at Mount St. Mary's Seminary. We would do a Youth 2000. It was inspired, started, you said, as being a Youth 2000,
Yes.
and it's the same thing they do today, I think. And you know what strikes me about it too is that you go there and these things that you might be doing in your own life already, occasionally, maybe for a young person, it can strike you in a new way in a different environment. Like the beauty or the incense or turning off the lights or having all these candles. It's like it has a way of maybe touching you in a new way. Because I know I was a seminarian and going to it and thinking I knew it all and had, you know, and I remember being so profoundly moved in the talks. I mean, in my deacon year, I got to be the one to process with the Eucharist around, and it was, it just, you see a young person crying or something, reaching out and touching. I mean, it was pretty big, impactful. And I guess too, I want to go back to see like the young people I know at the Mount. It's true, they would just go to confession. And I'm like thinking, why is this happening? I mean, why? So oftentimes when it's a forgotten sacrament, and yet something special is happening at this retreat to inspire these young people to go to confession. And I remember one of the seminarian professors who was hearing confessions, he said at the end of the weekend, he was moved. I mean, they were hearing, like Father Marius was there one year. I remember he was like there to 3 in the morning hearing confessions. And this priest said, though, that he was moved by what the young people were struggling with. He said, this is a rough culture that's trashing people. And this was really coming, they were real confessions, you know, and he could see the struggle. Has that been your experience, Father?
Yes, I think the retreat is fairly challenging for the young people, and that's why, again, you know, the testimonies, personal experience of people talking about confession, their own experience of it, to invite them, but to have that personal experience, someone saying, I met Christ in the confessional this way, or I met Christ in the Eucharist, and personal testimonies enhance and build up the solid teaching that they're getting. So much need for solid teaching, you know. Pope John Paul used to say that people don't want a lot of teaching today, but a testimony, they do want to hear a testimony. They want to know why you are joyful in Christ, where you encountered him, or what it is that you know of him. And so I find the struggle is there in the confessional, but they're surrendering because something wonderful is happening. They're meeting Christ in the midst of it. And maybe it's a mystery that it has to unfold through the weekend, but they're able to meet it, I think, with the testimonies, the encouragement.
Right. Well, we're going to take a short break. We'll be back in a minute with Youth 2000, so don't go away. We'll be back in a moment. All right, Doug, you got a question for us.
Yeah, I just, you know, you were talking earlier before the break, all of you, about the way young people will respond when they're in the presence of Christ in this fashion, in the Eucharist, and to see them to somewhat melt before God. And I would just want the audience to know and to hear that we're created for this, that we're wired for that melting. We're wired to be in this presence, to adore God in this fashion. And so this isn't as if these kids are so special and unique, but that we're all created for this type of encounter with Christ. But so few of us really have the formation, the training, or the circumstances that provide it. Can you speak, any or all of you, to that reality that just this is the body is created for nutrition and exercise and proper rest, to find its physical sense of peace, if you will. The soul is created for that spiritual peace that only Christ can give. And so this isn't so unique in the sense that, wow, this is rare. Well, it wouldn't be so rare if we were more exposed to Christ in this way, because we're all created for this, aren't we?
That's true. Well, interiorly, I guess everybody has that longing to be loved. And again, to quote Pope John Paul, you'll not be satisfied until you know that you can be totally loved and that you can totally love. And so we get introduced to something of the mystery of the God who wants to love us. And he expresses that in so many ways within the church, that he wants to show that love to us. And if we give him that opportunity, you know, he draws out of us that hidden fear, that hidden sense of sin, that the reality of sin. Maybe like the prodigal son. I've heard it said concerning the prodigal son that as soon as he came to that practice, when he started practicing saying, well, I'll go to my father's house and I'll tell him this. And as soon as he came to that admission that he would go to his father's house, something in the father's heart waited for him. And that's why the father was looking in the distance to see him when he would come. And so God is always longing to reveal that love to us, and we have that need to be loved by him. So yeah, it's the tremendous exchange that God has made us in this way, that we need to experience that love. And he calls then to us to love him in return, which is again, to learn how to adore him and worship him is such a great thing in our lives.
And this isn't something that's just set apart for a few people. We're all created for this.
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
It's just like a baby longs to be. I mean, all 5 of my kids that we've been blessed with. We have 7, 2 miscarriages, 2 with our Lord. But of the 5 children, my wife and I have been able to be fortunate and blessed enough to raise. From the moment they came out of the womb, they wanted to be fed, they wanted to be loved, they wanted to give love. And even though the personalities are different, their height and weight is different, their eye color, well, it's all the same. They all got my wife's eyes, but they all are in the love department the same. And it's the same with us with God. We're all wired for the same love.
That reminds me of a story. We did a retreat, U2000 retreat, shortly after 9/11 in Long Island. And this area of Long Island was particularly hit by people who were victimized by the attacks. And the retreat was very powerful because of that, very focused. And there was one young woman, young lady, who was, her father died in the attacks. And she had been struggling with anger and sadness, of course, and despair. Where is God? The big question, where was God on 9/11? And of course, she was struggling with this. And she came to the retreat because she had already been signed up for it. And Saturday night, in front of the Blessed Sacrament, she just had this moment of grace, this flood of peace, where she knew her father was in God's care, and that no matter how dark the situation was during those attacks, that Jesus was still Lord, and that he is merciful and all-loving. And it was a mysterious experience beyond words, beyond intellect. She found peace and she found consolation beyond anything a counselor could possibly bring to the situation, although those are necessary and important. So, and life is full of those situations. Our intellect, the physical things that God has given us, that's only half the picture. The other half is the mysterious consolation that we need, and he only can give, especially in the Eucharist.
This makes me think, as you're describing that scene, and was mentioned earlier about, I think, Father Mark, you may have mentioned it, about the confessions that are heard, and the priests are saying, and you would know this, Father Conrad, from being at these, that there are wounds that are being shown and scars that are being revealed at moments like this, when we have this intense encounter with Christ. And it made me think about the story of a woman she was in a car accident years and years and years ago, and her face was horribly scarred by hitting the windshield. And the doctors, many surgeries later and healing, and there were scars there. And she was going about her life. Some 5, 8, 10 years go by, and someone comes to her with a nutritional supplement sort of thing, cream and such, and internal things that she began to take. And as she did this, slowly the scars began to heal and regenerate, and bits of glass started to come to the surface and be revealed. So when she had this encounter with this extreme super nutritional sort of something or another, these deep wounds that were still under the scars, bits of glass that were still in her face, came out and slowly started to show themselves, and they were able to remove them, and she was able to heal more completely. Makes me think of the confession, the deep confessions in moments of this type of encounter with Christ, where we all have things that we're battling that may be so buried so deep, and we're so shattered, like little shards of glass, small and hard to see, that encounters like this, Christ can bring forth and remove and heal. It's just a powerful experience to imagine.
Yes, as I was reading the scriptures beforehand and thinking that most of the people Jesus was relating to were possibly young people. You know, the prostitute, the woman at the well, the prodigal son, young people who experienced tremendous difficulty trying to get to the stage of really living. And the tremendous battle that they go to just to find faith and to find their vocation, their place in the world. And so when the Lord makes that invitation to them, you know, their hearts so often have been prepared. Like that woman, you know, in need of the healing, you know, and God draws it out. He draws out the sin that's in all of us. A bit of the leper is in all of us, you know, the need to be raised up and to be healed. So we're very grateful for that.
It's powerful.
And one of the things I like about the retreat is that it seems like it gets down to just like essentials of the faith, right? We mentioned the preaching, the catechesis, the teaching, the sacraments, the Eucharist, confession, the fellowship, the communion of the church. I mean, we hear that theme constantly, Life on the Rock, you're not alone. And it just seems like things happen, right? And the young people have a special openness themselves, right, to hear that message. Has there been situations, I know you mentioned one story, but like going into a particularly tough, maybe group of young people and don't seem particularly willing, but things happen?
We had one in Dallas, and the word got out. It was a pretty big one, and this was a long time ago. But word got out that there was a gang that was there, and none of the young people, well, not very many of the young people would go to confession because the gang members were there, and there was this sort of negative pressure to just everybody better not participate. One of the friars was there, and he started talking about it. He said, "Now I hear there's some people from the gangs here, and you know, everybody stand up if you're in a gang." And they wouldn't stand up. And he goes, "Oh, come on, the gangs in the Bronx, boy, they'd be up like that. You know, you guys must not be as tough as the gangs we have up in New York." So they all shot up, and he got him up, but he turned it around that, you know, you are leaders, and you're calling the shots, and he turned it around to say you could be leading people to Christ. And you know, it's funny, but throughout the weekend you saw the gang members kind of, you know, go to confession here and there, you know, not all in a line, but that one was tough. That was a tough retreat, and you might.
Yeah, well, there was the retreat in Oakland, I remember. We nicknamed it Gangster 2000 because most of the kids there were from gangs, and entire gangs were converted on that retreat. Yeah. Similar situation. Yeah. But they came back the following years to help out at the retreat, and they gave up the gang life. Yeah. But so oftentimes, the friars and sisters, and we have this special vision, you know, this, well, whatever, the special vision where we look out for kids with the piercings and the hair and everything else extraordinary, because those are the ones that I think are really searching and looking. Even the angry ones, there's an anger there that you could work with, that God works with. And so we look for those kids on the retreat, and we try to include them. And that's I think one of the things about Youth 2000, it's youth ministering to youth. So oftentimes you see the kids with all the piercings handing out miraculous medals and, you know, come on, help serve a mass, help do the readings, and it really engages them on a very deep level. It includes them. It includes them. They're not written off on this retreat. They're seen as sons and daughters of God as well. Yeah. And not only do they hear that message of being loved and lovable, but we show it by the experience of the team toward them. And that makes all the difference so many times. So
there was a young man in LA one time it was a huge retreat, and the priest that had brought this group of young people from a really tough part of LA, he nearly fell out of his chair on Sunday because this young man had been invited without knowing his background, but he had just gotten out of jail within the last like 6 months, and this young man had been invited to lead crown Mary. On Sunday after the Blessed Sacrament is reposed, there's a crowning of Mary, and young people bring up candles, the 12 stars, representing the 12 stars in Mary's crown. And this young man crowned Our Lady. And it's just so beautiful because, you know, it doesn't matter where they've come from. And so many young people, y'all hear that all the time, they have like this deep, like you were saying, this deep hurt. And some of it is so, you know, they're involved in so many different things that the culture is saying is okay, but in their hearts they know it's not. And they're so smart today with all the technology and everything, and when they hear the truth, when they just are confronted with the truth, it's like, now that is the truth. That's the truth, and they know it, and they'll go to confession, and they get rid of the doubts and the shame and whatever they might be carrying deep in their hearts that they don't tell anybody about, that they might be involved in, and there's just this peace and this freedom that Jesus gives them. And I think that's it. You said the basics. I think it's the sacraments. It's the sacraments.
And it seems like the young people, I mean, every human person has an openness to the truth, right? It strikes them. And the young people, though, especially, they have a gift of idealism, right? They want to believe in something great. They want to believe their lives have something great in store for them. But yet we're still amazed. Maybe we have that gospel amazement, you know, to see Christ working. Why are we still amazed? Yeah. I mean, we're telling them the truth. Shouldn't they believe it? We're giving them sacraments that they encounter Christ in. Yeah. What's the effect been for you, Father, to see? Well,
one of my favorite scriptures, of course, is Jesus saying, "Come to me and learn from me." You know, and here you have this setting with 200, 300, 500, 1,000 young people, and Jesus is in the center of the room the whole weekend, and so there's this mystery and connection, a call to prayer, a confession of believers saying that Jesus did this in my life, he changed my life, and slowly people experiencing that Jesus is alive here in the center of the room, and I sense him saying to me, "Come to me," you know, or maybe I can come to him. Maybe everything that I've experienced has been so difficult for me can be laid at his feet. And they begin to experience a possibility of salvation, the possibility of God's loving them. And there's nothing more incredible, you know, for believers than the joy of salvation when it strikes their face and they realize that he's truly present, he's truly there. And the Eucharist is always evangelistic. Jesus is always evangelizing from the center of the room. I mean, all weekend long, you know, and he's drawing them. He says, you know, that unless the Son draws us, you know, we cannot come to the Father. So Jesus does that for us through the weekend. Huh?
That's right. And that he says that so many times in John 6.
Yes.
Unless the Father draws him. And so, yeah, I guess, yeah, we see God at work, and it's always, I guess the people involved in it, you always realize that something so much greater than our human efforts occurred here, that it wasn't us.
We see it as radiation. You know, if you sit in the presence of radiation, you're being affected even if you don't know about it, even if you don't want to be affected by it, you're being affected. And so the Eucharist is very similar. The grace, we believe, affects people even if they're not in tune or distracted in front of the Blessed Sacrament. And just get them there, Jesus takes care of the rest. You know, the invisible hands of grace at work.
We're going to take a short break. We'll be back, and we'll speak about your work with World Youth Day as well. So be back in a moment. Welcome back. And Suzie, you all have a lot of great initiatives at the World Youth Day events. Tell us what's going on for Brazil coming up here.
Well, we're hoping and praying to be something similar to Madrid. We were assigned a very central location for Eucharistic adoration. So for each World Youth Day, we work with we're actually on the planning committee. So we go, my mom's actually leaving on Monday for Rome for the big events that'll happen on Palm Sunday. There where the young people from Madrid will give or from Spain will give the World Youth Day cross to the young people from Rio. But we've been a part of that, and through that, our hope has always been, since we first helped in Denver with Eucharistic adoration, to make adoration a bigger part of the World Youth Day. And so for each World Youth Day since then, we've been assigned a place to host Eucharistic adoration, and it's really beautiful because young people will come from all different countries. We'll meet people at the planning meetings from many, many different countries, and we'll invite their bishops and their clergy to bring the young people, and they'll each take an hour of adoration, and they'll pray in their language, sing songs in their language. So that's a big, big part of it. And it's a beautiful way. Like in Madrid, the church was right on the main route. So it was packed, thousands of people in there every day. And it was just no place to really move. But the young people came in out of the busy streets and the excitement, and they came in just for that quiet. So hosting Eucharistic adoration, the International Holy Hours, and then just recently, Eucharistic adoration at the vigils has become very important. So
That was
all-night adoration. So
yeah, it seems like to me the elements that are at a Youth 2000 are the elements of what makes World Youth Day great.
Yeah.
I mean, you had the Holy Father, but you know, the Youth 2000, you have the local bishop, which adds a lot, especially for a young person maybe who's never seen the bishop, and to see the chief shepherd, you know, the diocese there come and his authority. I remember being struck by that in Baltimore. Well, Doug, you had a question for us, too.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking so much about adoration and you know, that we're created for this, to adore God and be fulfilled by this union and these types of communion with God. Why is this so necessary? And I say that meaning that there are some who would look at this and think, well, this is a really neat idea. This is probably good for some people and some kids, but this is essential for our world. Why is this essential that we have this form of expression of adoring God, adoration? Why is it necessary and essential to mankind?
Well, it's the mystery which Jesus gave us, and in simple terms, it was necessary for him to give us the covenant as he had always given to his people, and he handed on to us the covenant in his body and his blood. And I've heard it said actually that many people believe, but they don't believe enough. They want to believe in the miracles, they want to believe in the incredible things, you know, that change us in our humanity, but they don't believe enough in the divine presence of Jesus in the Eucharist that will help them to turn from sin. Because Jesus we need a preparation of heart, you know, to be able to meet the King of Kings, to see him face to face. And the Eucharist, Jesus present in the Eucharist always reminds us that we need to be saved. And the confessional is our best preparation, you know, to meet the King. It's not the exterior dress, which, of course, for friars that doesn't change very much, but it's the interior change, you know, that we prepare ourselves to meet him. It's so necessary for souls. You know, I like to, when I hear Jesus' word, it sounds too formal when it says, do this in remembrance of me. I often call to people's mind that he's essentially saying, I want to be remembered by you in this way. And he left us the gift of the Eucharist and the gift of the confessional, saying, this is how I want to meet and encounter you. And the Eucharist becomes the center of the community of believers. And why is it necessary? Because he wants us to be gathered around. He wants us to be drawn by that same experience, that fundamental gift of his presence in the Eucharist. It's truly the most incredible miracle which needs for us to surrender to a deeper faith to believe and see him.
And our world as a whole needs this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think the darkness out there that the young people that's pulling them is so dark that the only one who can counter that is the light of Jesus and truly Jesus, and really being just in his presence, and they just surrender to him. It's really beautiful because they have that light just on them, and they almost are, you know, they're so bright when they leave. It's just beautiful. They don't want to. They keep singing and they want to stay. And so.
One point about the surrender. You know, when you were talking, Father, I was thinking of surrender. Adoration does involve a certain surrender, and that's such a consolation to so many people, because so many people feel and experience their own helplessness and their powerlessness. And so, if salvation is a matter of surrender, everyone can do that. You know, if healing and being loved by God is a matter of surrendering, just come in front of Jesus as who you are, no matter what you've done, what you've not done in your life, whatever you've been through, come to Jesus and surrender in that act of adoration. And I think ultimately, for eternity, we're made to be on our hands and knees and face down to the ground in front of the throne of Christ, you know, in bliss, surrendering for eternity in adoration. And but it's such a consolation, because again, there's such a negativity and such a dehumanization that goes on among young people, and it's just so simple to approach Jesus.
And Father, you speak about the value of just having the young people genuflecting, maybe being taught for the first time, or to do a reverent genuflection.
Well, you don't just genuflect for anybody, you know, and so that the very act of learning how to genuflect, you know, when the young people come into a retreat, again, it's an environment which is a mixed environment of, you know, gymnasium converted into a place of beauty, and going to become the presence of the Lord in the Eucharist there. And so moving from the action of something that's more like a basketball court to that place, that temple where Christ is dwelling, is something that slowly they're taught, you know, the necessity when you come and go. Now Jesus is present in the Eucharist. Bow before him and genuflect and leave quietly so that others can take time with him and speak to him from their heart. And so there's this possibility of interior silence and union that's created by instruction, and young people given the opportunity by a simple act of genuflection to learn that, yes, he's to be adored. He's to be worshipped. They haven't even realized the full sense of it, but they're experiencing the communion of it in the action, the possibility that someone deserves everyone's respect. Right. And he's here now. And so it's a profound act, that genuflection.
Pope Benedict's got a great quote about that idolatry is the solution or the cure for the false idolatry of this age, you know, that we have so many false idols. And yeah, we now have a place to kneel, to bow, to genuflect before the Lord. So powerful. You spoke of Cardinal Stafford, and he had a powerful experience in Denver at the World Youth Day. Could you talk about that?
As Suzie was talking about World Youth Day, and he became the prefect in charge of World Youth Days. But it started back in his own diocese in Denver, where before World Youth Day even came to Denver, and Youth 2000 was there, and the young people were gathered. The weekend was quite incredible as it is. It gradually grows to something quite awesome, and the enthusiasm of the young people. And by the time the bishop comes on Sunday to have the Mass, of course, the young people are at fever pitch now with enthusiasm and excitement, amazement, joy. And Sunday is a great celebration, the Mass. And the bishop comes, and that day when he came, when Bishop Stafford came in the sacristy as the priest, his own priest, we're all gathering around him, and you could hear them all telling him the incredible things that young people were saying about their experience of the faith, what they had learned, what they had seen, and the bishop tears started to run down his face, you know, and at that moment, I think I mentioned to you, he had just had an operation, and so he had this big old wad of gauze around his nose, you know, and it wasn't anything that I think I'd want to walk out and stand in front of 1,000 kids with, you know. And he walked out simply and humbly, and he started the Mass by saying, "I've been praying for you for a long time." And you sense the genuineness of that, you know, from the sacristy where he wept in thanksgiving, and in the public gathering around the table of the Lord where he confessed to them. His prayer has been a self-offering and a desire for this union in the gathering of the retreat.
I know, Suzie, you wanted to mention, talk about the new evangelization. Could you speak about Youth 2000's role in that?
Yes, well, Pope Benedict created the new Pontifical Council in September of 2010, and the Pontifical Council for the Promotion of the New Evangelization, and they had the first meeting in October, and Youth 2000 was invited to present. There were only 115 organizations from around the world that were invited, and these are organizations or movements that I think the church sees that are really reaching young people in new ways, but not really new ways, because it's just the sacraments. It's very simple ways, but beautiful ways. And so it was a real honor to be a part of that. And just the call in the new evangelization that what we're doing at Youth 2000 is the call is to be evangelized and go evangelize, so that these young people are closing Mass on Sunday. The homily is always the evangelization, and go out, and how do you take what you've learned, not just keep it in your heart, but you have to go out and take this to your families, to your schools. So there's a real focus on evangelization. The talk on Mary on Sunday is called the Star of Evangelization, so it's really beautiful. So,
and I think that highlights too the important role that young people have today.
Yes. That
they are such a powerful witness.
Yes.
It gets the attention of the secular world.
Yes.
These World Youth Day gatherings, or probably locally when these are one of these events, that you have young people making this retreat and going to confession. I mean, that's medieval, isn't it?
Yeah, and they love it.
Yeah.
Well, and the people on the show all the time, you know, just to see the young people, it's a witness that you don't expect it really, to see the young people and to be so on fire.
And I like that too, you know, the boldness of a John Paul II goes to Denver, says, preach the gospel from the rooftops. Yeah. You know, young people kind of give up on them sometimes. You see so many difficulties, the struggles they have in the culture and everything. And John Paul II saying, get out there and spread the faith. You know, he's not giving up, and you have a great quote about how that evangelization is the work of God, right? It's not dependent on our strength or personality.
Right. Pope Benedict at the closing Mass at this meeting where he announced that there would be a year of faith starting next October, he said that it's God who is doing the work. It's God who touches the hearts, not the people, not the evangelizer. That's the evangelizers that are doing it. So it's
right. So the young people have such an important role in the church. We say it constantly here on Life on the Rock. You see it at events like these in World Youth Day. It gives just a gift of hope, right? Not to say that they have to have the greatest wisdom or all the answers, but they have such a powerful gift of hope, idealism, energy, conversion, openness, basic goodness. So just so many great things happening. And any closing comments? We've got about 30 seconds. Contact info.
Yes, if they want to contact Youth 2000, I think the website is, well, I know the website is youth2000usa.org. So you can look on there and they could email us and let us know if they're interested in hosting a Youth 2000 retreat. It's pretty simple. Just call and we'll pick a date that works for you and works in our schedule. And then the friars sign up for the retreats. So they'll come and do the preaching, and a couple other orders help too with the retreat. So it's pretty easy to do and get set up.
Okay, well, Father and I will give you all a blessing. May the Heavenly Father shine His face upon you, give you His peace. And may Almighty God bless you, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. We'll see you next week.